I'm Sarah, 29, female. I'm a registered nurse at St. Jude's Hospital. It's the only place I've ever wanted to work, the same hospital where my grandfather was once the chief of surgery. I live in a simple apartment downtown, and my life has always been about my 12-hour shifts, my patients, and the quiet pride I take in my work. I loved my job until the day the new CEO, in his wisdom, decided I was just a number on a spreadsheet, a number he could easily delete. He had no idea that I wasn't just a nurse. I was one of the people who paid his salary. Before this story unfolds, I'd love to connect with you. Please let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is in your corner of the world. It's amazing to see how far these stories can travel. My life had a rhythm. It was the squeak of hospital, grade sneakers on polished linoleum, the smell of antiseptic, and the constant, quiet beep of monitors. For 7 years, I'd been on the oncology ward at St. Jude's. It was hard work, emotionally draining work, but it was good work. St. Jude's wasn't just a job, it was family. My grandfather, Dr. Michael Reeves, had poured his life into this place. He believed in community health care, in putting patients before profits. When he passed away 3 years ago, he left me his shares in the hospital. It was a significant block, just over 10%, but I never touched them. I never told anyone. What was I going to do? Walk around the ward saying, by the way, I'm a major shareholder? It felt arrogant. I just wanted to be Sarah, the nurse. My best friend on the ward, Emily Jenkins, a nurse 5 years my senior, was the first to mention the new corporate shark. They're bringing in some guy from a tech firm. She muttered over lukewarm coffee in the break room. David Cole, word is, he's here to trim the fat. We don't have any fat to trim, I said, rubbing my temples. We're running on a skeleton crew as it is. We saw him a week later. He was touring the floor. He wasn't looking at patients. He was looking at equipment, at the age of the computers at the nurse's station, at the number of staff milling about. He wore an immaculate $3000 suit, shoes that looked like black mirrors, and he held a tablet like it was a shield. He walked right past me and Emily. He didn't smile, didn't nod, didn't make eye contact. To him, we were just part of the scenery, blue uniforms, background noise. He looks like he's never touched a sick person in his life. I whispered to Emily, he's not here for the sick people. She whispered back, he's here for the spreadsheets. I just nodded and went back to checking a patient's Roman 4. I was busy, I had work to do. He was just another suit, and I was just another face in the hallway. I didn't matter to him. And that was his first and his biggest mistake. It happened exactly 2 weeks later. The trimming had begun, and it was brutal. First, the hospital's pediatric outreach program, the one that sent nurses to low-income schools, was cut. Just like that, an email went out at 5:00 p.m. on a Friday. Then they switched our primary supplier for wound care dressings to a cheaper brand that we all knew was inferior. Morale in the hospital plummeted. Everyone was walking on eggshells, terrified they'd be next. I was in the middle of a double shift, exhausted and running on fumes, when my unit manager called me over. Sarah, she said, her face pale, the new admin office needs to see you. Now, I'm in the middle of rounds. They said it was urgent. A cold feeling settled in my stomach. I handed my chart to Emily, who gave me a worried look. What's this about? I don't know. I said, probably about the new charting software. I took the elevator to the administrative floor. It was all glass and chrome, a world away from the scuffs and smells of the patient wards. I was led into a long, polished boardroom, and there he was, David Cole, sitting at the head of the table, laptop open. An HR representative I'd never seen before was sitting in the corner, staring at her lap. Ah, Sarah, Cole said. He didn't stand up. He didn't even look up from his screen. Thank you for coming. Please sit. I didn't. I was told this was urgent. He finally looked at me. His eyes were cold like polished stones. It is, in a way, we're moving forward with a new organizational restructuring, an efficiency protocol, and as part of that, your position has been identified as redundant. The word hung in the air. Redundant. I'm a senior RN. We are critically short-staffed on the oncology floor. He sighed, as if I were a child he had to explain basic math to. We've analyzed the metrics, Sarah. Your seniority, as you call it, makes your position too costly for the value provided. We've found that we can hire 2 junior nurses for your salary. It's just simple business. The value provided. I was shaking. Not with fear, but with a white-hot rage. I've been here for 7 years. I train the new nurses. I sit with patients when they, yes, we appreciate your service. He cut me off, dismissive. He slid a single white envelope across the table. HR will explain your severance package. Your access will be revoked at the end of the day. We ask that you don't cause a scene. I looked at the envelope. I looked at him. A scene. It's just business, he repeated. Don't take it personally. I took the letter. I didn't open it. I turned and walked out of the room. I walked past the shocked face of my unit manager, past the nurse's station, and went straight to my locker. Emily found me packing my things into a cardboard box, my favorite stethoscope, a framed photo of my grandfather, a get-well-soon card a patient's family had given me. Sarah, what happened? I'm redundant, I said. My voice was hollow. A security guard I'd known for 5 years, a nice man named Mark, walked up, looking ashamed. Orders, Sarah, I have to walk you out. It's not your fault, Mark, I said. I picked up my box. As I walked out the front doors of St. Jude's for the last time as an employee, I felt the cold October air hit my face. I'd been fired by a man who didn't even know my last name. I sat in my car in the parking garage for a full hour. The engine was off. The only sound was the distant hum of the building's ventilation. Too costly, redundant, just business. The anger was a cold, hard knot in my stomach. He had torn my life apart with a 5-minute meeting, all to save a few dollars on a spreadsheet. He had insulted my work, my skill, and my grandfather's memory. I drove home. The cardboard box sat on my kitchen counter, a monument to my redundancy. I didn't cry. I didn't call my mom. I opened my laptop. I didn't go to job sites. I went to my brokerage account. I typed in my password and hit enter. The screen loaded, and there it was. St. Jude's Healthcare Partners, LLC. Shares 150,000 current value, $18 for 150,000 percentage of ownership 10. 3% my grandfather had been smart. He hadn't just left me stock, he left me voting shares, a seat at the table I had never, ever wanted to take. I remembered the note his lawyer had given me with the will. Use this only when they forget why we built this place. Sarah, use this to protect the patients, not the profits. The time had come. I pulled out my phone. I scrolled past Emily's worried text messages. I scrolled past my mom. I found a number in my contacts I hadn't dialed in 3 years, James Peterson. He was my grandfather's best friend, his oldest friend, and the longest, serving member of the hospital's board of directors. He answered on the second ring. Sarah, what a wonderful surprise. How are things on the oncology floor? I haven't seen you since the spring gala. My voice was quiet, but it didn't shake. Hello, James. I'm not on the oncology floor. I was just fired. There was a profound silence on the other end of the line. Then, a sharp, angry intake of breath. He what? David Cole. He held a meeting. He said my position was redundant. James, he's gutting the place. He cut the pediatric outreach. He's firing senior staff. He's going to destroy everything Grandpa built. That arrogant, short-sighted. We hired him to streamline operations, not to amputate the hospital's core. The board needs to hear about this immediately. They will. I said, my eyes fixed on the 10. 3% on my screen. James, I need to know, what are the bylaws for calling an emergency shareholder meeting? Another pause. This one was different. I could almost hear him smiling. A holder with a 10% stake or more can call one with 48 hours notice. Why do you ask, my dear? Because... I said, pulling my laptop closer, I'm calling one for Friday, and James, I need you to send me Mr. Cole's new vision. The real one, all of it. James Peterson was a man of his word. Within an hour, my inbox was flooded. Memos, spreadsheets, budget proposals, and the crown jewel, a password. Protected file labeled Project Nightingale, a new financial dawn. It sounded lovely. It was a horror show. I spent the next 24 hours fueled by coffee and a cold, focused fury. I didn't sleep, I just read, I cross-referenced numbers, I looked up shell companies, I used the business skills my grandfather had insisted I learn in college, the ones I thought I'd never need. Emily came over on Wednesday night, bringing pizza and a bottle of cheap wine. Okay, you're scaring me, she said, looking at the mess of papers on my coffee table. What is all this? Are you suing them? I'll testify. I'll tell them what a monster he is. Something like that. I murmured, my eyes glued to a spreadsheet. Em, did you know they're planning to sell the land St. Jude's is built on? What, sell the hospital? No, just the building and the land. He's planning to sell our current property, which we own outright, free and clear, to a private real estate investment trust, a rate, and then have the hospital lease it back from them. But, why, that's insane, Emily said, sitting down. Our operating costs would go through the roof. Exactly, I said, but the hospital would get a massive, one-time cash payout, A payout that makes the CEO look like a financial genius for about 6 months, until the crippling lease payments start. I pointed to a name on the Rates Incorporation documents, and look at this, Cole Financial Ventures. Sound familiar? Is that him? It's his brother. He's trying to sell the hospital's main asset to his family for a price that's at least $20 million under market value. He's locking the hospital into an impossible 30-year lease that will bankrupt us in 10 years, and his family gets the building. Emily's face was white. But what about the cuts? Firing you, the pediatric program. He's doing all of that to make the books look better right now. I explained, the final, ugly piece clicking into place. He fires senior staff. He cuts non-essential services. He's trimming the fat, just like you said, but not to save the hospital. He's making it look lean and profitable on paper, so the board will approve his brilliant real estate deal. He hadn't fired me to save $70,000 a year. He'd fired me as window dressing for a multi-million-dollar corporate heist. He was bleeding my grandfather's hospital dry from the inside. What are we going to do? Father's hospital dry from the inside. What are we going to do, Sarah? I looked at the email I was drafting. I said, are going to that meeting. On Thursday morning at 9:00 a.m. sharp, I hit send. The email was sent to the entire board of directors, the senior executive team, and of course, Mr. David Cole. Subject, notice of emergency shareholder meeting called by S. Reeves 10. 3% stake. I kept the body of the email simple, professional, and ice cold. Pursuant to the Corporate Bylaws, Article 4, Section 2, an emergency meeting of all shareholders and board members is hereby called for Friday, October 27th at 10:00 a.m. in the main boardroom. The agenda will be provided at the meeting. Attendance is mandatory. I signed it, Sarah M. Reeves, shareholder. My phone rang less than 60 seconds later. It wasn't James. It was an unknown number from the hospital's executive line. I let it ring 3 times, took a deep breath, and answered. Hello, who is this? He barked, no greeting. This is David Cole. Who is this? This is Sarah Reeves. You're the nurse I. Where did you get this email list? What is this prank? This is highly unprofessional. I will have you prosecuted for harassment and corporate espionage. Mr. Cole, I said, my voice as calm and flat as an EKG line, I assure you this is not a prank. My grandfather was Dr. Michael Reeves. The 3% voting stake he held now belongs to me. There was a sound on the other end of the line, a sort of choked, gurgling noise. That's impossible. He sputtered. That's a lie. It's not, and I am exercising my right as the hospital's second largest shareholder to call this meeting. As I'm sure you understand, I have some concerns about the new efficiency protocols. I'll see you on Friday. Please don't be late. I hung up before he could respond. My hands were shaking, but this time it was pure adrenaline. James called a minute later. He's panicking. James said, and I could hear the smile in his voice. He just called me, demanding to know who this Reeves woman is. He's threatening to cancel the meeting, says it's fraudulent. He can't, can he? Not without violating the bylaws. The board is already confirming. They're all terrified of a 10% shareholder they didn't know existed. They'll all be there. You just be ready, Sarah. I'm ready, I said. I've got my presentation all figured out. Friday morning, I didn't wear scrubs. I wore the best suit I owned, a simple charcoal gray pantsuit I'd bought for a medical conference 2 years ago. I pulled my hair back into a tight professional bun. I looked in the mirror. I didn't look like Sarah, the nurse. I looked like Sarah M. Reeves, shareholder. Emily texted me as I was walking out the door. Go get him. We're all rooting for you. I walked into the main lobby of St. Jude's. The receptionist looked at me, confused, probably wondering why a fired nurse was back in a suit. I didn't go to the patient elevators. I walked straight to the administrative wing, to the main boardroom. The room was silent. The board members, 10 of them, were already seated, looking nervous and whispering among themselves. James Peterson was at the far end of the table. He gave me a subtle, encouraging nod. David Cole was at the head of the table. He looked like he hadn't slept in 48 hours. His face was blotchy and red. When I walked in, he stood up so fast his leather chair screeched on the floor. MS? Reeves, this meeting is highly irregular and, frankly, a waste of this board's time. Please, sit down, Mr. Cole, I said. My voice was amplified by the room's acoustics. It sounded stronger than I felt. I took the empty seat directly opposite him. I called this meeting, so I'll begin. I walked to the front, plugged a USB drive into the table's main port, and my presentation flashed onto the 80-inch screen at the end of the room. The title slide just said, Project Nightingale, an analysis. I've been reviewing your new vision for the hospital. I started. It's very ambitious, especially your plan to sell our core real estate asset. A few of the board members shifted uncomfortably. This was clearly news to some of them. Cole glared. That is a sensitive corporate proposal, not for public discussion. I'm not the public, I'm the second largest shareholder, I said, clicking to the next slide, and I'm concerned, especially about the buyer you've chosen, Cole Financial Ventures. A rate registered in Delaware. I was curious, so I looked it up. The primary registered agent is a Mr. Thomas Cole. Your brother, isn't he? A woman on the board gasped. James just sipped his water, watching. This is an outrageous accusation. Cole thundered, slamming his hand on the table. Is it? I clicked to the next slide. It was a side. By side comparison, because you are proposing to sell this property, which our own books value at $75 million for a cash price of $50 million. You are trying to sell our hospital to your brother at a $25 million discount, and in return, you want to lock St. Jude's into a 30-year lease that will increase our operating costs by 30% annually. The room was dead silent, and to make this deal look good, I continued, my voice rising. To make the hospital look profitable enough to absorb this new lease, you started trimming the fat. You cut the pediatric outreach, you switched to inferior suppliers, and on Tuesday, you fired me, a senior nurse with 7 years of experience. You told me my position was redundant and too costly. You fired me and 12 others like me to fudge the numbers for this. I turned from the screen and looked right at the board members. He is not saving St. Jude's, he is liquidating it. He is Assat, stripping my grandfather's legacy for his own family's profit. Cole was pale, a sheen of sweat on his forehead. You can't prove any of this. This is slander. Mr. Peterson, I said, turning to my grandfather's friend, do you have the item I requested? James stood up, his 65. Your old frame radiating authority. The board bylaws state that a CEO can be dismissed for gross misconduct or clear conflict of interest with a simple majority vote. I have here a motion, submitted by MS. Reeves and formally seconded by myself, for the immediate termination of David Cole's contract with Cause, pending a full forensic audit of Project Nightingale and all associated finances. Cole looked around the table, his eyes wide with panic. You can't do this. I was hired to make the tough calls. This hospital is failing. I looked him right in the eye, the same cold, dismissive look he had given me. No, you were hired to manage this hospital, not to rob it. This isn't just business, Mr. Cole. It's people's lives. My position isn't redundant. Yours is. I turned to the board, all in favor. James's hand went up, then the woman who had gasped, then another and another. Within 5 seconds, every single hand at the table was raised, except for David Cole's. He stared at his hands. He opened his mouth, then closed it. He slammed his laptop shut. You will all be hearing from my lawyers, and you, James said, his voice like gravel, will be hearing from the district attorney. Cole stormed out of the room. Through the glass, I could see 2 security guards, including Mark, who gave a small nod, waiting for him. The silence in the room after he left was absolute. It felt like the entire hospital had taken a deep breath. James Peterson finally broke it. Well, that was bracing. He turned to me, and his expression was no longer just proud. It was impressed. MS Reeves. Sarah, the board has a second motion we'd like to table. I was still trying to process what had just happened. A motion. With Mr. Cole's departure, he said, we have a significant leadership vacuum. The board would like to offer you an interim position on the new Executive Oversight Committee, effective immediately. We need someone in charge who actually understands what this hospital does. I was stunned. Me. James, I'm a nurse. No, Sarah, he said, walking over and putting a hand on my shoulder. You're a leader. You're the one who remembered what this place is for. We need you. It's been 6 months since that day. The forensic audit was ugly. It turned out Project Nightingale was a clear-cut case of fraud. David Cole is now facing multiple charges, and his brother's rate is being investigated by the state. I took the committee position. It's a lot of meetings, it's a lot of spreadsheets, but I made one condition. I still work 2 shifts a week on the oncology floor. In my scrubs, I refuse to be one of those people who forgets what the hallway smells like. Emily is now the new charge nurse, and she's brilliant at it. The pediatric outreach program was the first thing we reinstated with double the funding. We're reevaluating everything from the top down with a new focus, patient care, not just profit margins. My life isn't as simple as it was. My name is on a door on the administrative floor now, not just a locker in the basement. But I still pack my lunch, and I still believe in the work we do. David Cole thought I was just a number on a spreadsheet. He thought he could just delete me. He learned the hard way that every redundant employee has a story, and sometimes the quietest person in the room holds all the cards. He was the one who was truly too costly for the value provided. And in the end, it was his position that became permanently redundant.